Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, good afternoon. We're about to commence the Charter School Committee meeting as we're getting all settled in. Today's December 7th, 2023, Pearl Harbor Day, and also my brother's birthday, so shout out to my brother. First day of Hanukkah as well, so a lot of celebrations today and commemorations. So welcome, good afternoon. Today I am here joined by my colleagues and board district representatives. So here I have my colleague, Board Member Jackie Goldberg, and also Board Member Ortiz Franklin. So welcome, everybody. So we're going to start right ahead because we have a lot of presentations and questions and public comments, so I don't want to waste any time. So I'm looking forward to hearing the progress of Prop 39 policy development, as well as an update on the Charter School Division website. So please, our first presenter is going to present an update on the Prop 39 co-location policy. So district staff, don't sure who will be presenting.
Okay. So good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity for staff to present on the Charter Committee today. As you know, I'm Veronica Reguera. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer. Today I'm joined by my colleagues in the Charter School Division to provide you and the public with updates related to the agenda items listed today, including a brief update as to the status of the current Proposition 39 cycle. Staff has a combined slide deck that will cover the updates related to the development of co-location policy draft, Prop 39 matching guidelines, which is part of the draft policy updates, and the Charter School Division website. Since the last committee meeting last month, we were provided a status update. Where we provided a status update. Staff then continued the work diligently with leadership to advance the development of a draft co-location policy. As the team will share during the presentation, the policy is being finalized and can be ready for presentation at the next Committee of the Whole meeting. Today, we plan to share some of the key provisions of the draft, and we welcome your thoughts and questions following the presentation. I now invite Mr. Jose Cole Gutierrez, Director of Charter School Divisions, to proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Araguin. Good afternoon, Board President Goldberg, Chair Rivas, Board Member Ortiz Franklin, staff, community, and happy holidays to everybody, and certainly a happy birthday to your hermano. As Ms. Araguin noted, we will begin by providing a brief update, I'll turn to the slide 2, related to the current Proposition 39 cycle that is underway. Referencing the regulatory timeline you see before you, this should be familiar. We did share this at the prior committee. The district has now completed the second step in the timeline, which is to review the facilities requests submitted by charter schools and communicate whether the district has accepted or objected to the in-district ADA projection submitted by the charter schools. Now, in the ensuing months, here, November and December, the Charter Schools Division, as well as Facility Services Division and other staff, are supporting regions and have supported regions in evaluating the charter schools facilities requests to make preliminary recommendations for space matches and multi-site findings. In mid-December, preliminary space matches are shared with Board of Education members and labor partners for feedback. Feedback that is received is provided to district leadership for review and consideration prior to the finalization of the match recommendations to the superintendent by the regions. Looking ahead to January, multi-site findings are the written statements are brought forward to the Board of Education for review and adoption as required by law. In short, if there are charter school requests that cannot be accommodated on a single site, those reasons must be approved by the Board of Education. And then we work toward February 1st to make the preliminary proposals. Now, as to the next slide, The Office of the Superintendent and staff in this work have listened to the feedback provided at public comments in several meetings, analyzed the impacts of the Prop 39 co-locations and the district's current space utilization and allocation practices, and explored options and refinements to alleviate burdens experienced by co-located charter schools, co-located district and charter schools, as operationally feasible and legally permissible. The policy draft is being finalized and can be ready for presentation at the next available committee of the whole meeting. Recommended policy will be presented then to the Board of Education for consideration and adoption following the committee of the whole meeting. Next slide here. Now we will turn to providing an update on the co-location policy development and share some key draft provisions. This slide here shows 4 main areas of the draft policy. And as you may note, many of these areas align with the board resolution. First, matching guidelines. Second, supporting the district's most fragile students and schools, key programs, and student safety. Third, preserving programmatic spaces essential to enriching instruction and student health and human services. And 4, a section with subsections that we'll touch on, additional items. In the following 4 slides, we share some of the concepts in the working policy draft and provide some related comments. At this time, I'm going to invite Ms. Jeanette Borden, Charter Schools Operations Manager, to walk through these slides for us. Jeanette?
Thank you, Jose, and good afternoon, committee members, board members. So our first section is the matching guidelines for today. So these guidelines are derived from guidance that's in statute, regulations, and case law, and are informed by many years of real-world experience. All of these guidelines are used by district staff when considering each individual facility's request. Case law has recognized that the district's matching guidelines are in fact guidelines, and they cannot be applied in a vacuum and without rationale. Rather, in allocating space to charter schools pursuant to Prop 39, the district must consider the impacts on all public school students, both those attending district schools and those attending other charter schools requesting space. The district's matching guidelines are used in conjunction with thoughtful consideration of school and site conditions and the real-world impacts on all public school students in developing a co-location offer for each school. The first one is to consider student safety and welfare. The safety and welfare of all students is the district's paramount concern and primary and principal charge. As a couple of examples, the district considers safety in making co-location offers by ensuring that it does not exceed site capacity or increase classroom loading ratios for district programs. In addition, and particularly when considering when the district may be unable to accommodate a charter school on a single site, the district does not displace students. This is related to student safety in that doing so could increase the distance of travel to the school site for district families, which could negatively impact safety due to increased traffic dangers and impacts in identifying safe routes to school. The second item on here is identifying reasonably equivalent facilities. The concept is that charter schools in-district students will be offered facilities in conditions that are reasonably equivalent to those in which the charter school students would be accommodated if they were attending other public schools of the district. This relates to the capacity and conditions of the sites offered. Some examples that would be considered as part of the conditions of the sites that we're looking at for reasonable equivalence would include availability of sports facilities, playgrounds, the size of restroom fixtures, and the age and size of facilities more generally. The standard is reasonableness, and arithmetical precision in evaluating the capacity and condition of the sites is not required. Next is making reasonable efforts to provide facilities near to where the charter school requests to locate. The way the district accomplishes this is by reviewing all sites in proximity to the site or sites identified by a charter school in its facilities request. Near is a concept that has been determined to be flexible, and the statute and regulations do not define that term. Next, the fourth one on the slide is to minimize the number of sites assigned to the charter school, followed by not moving the charter school unnecessarily. What this means is that there must be a justification for moving a charter school from one site to another. Next is minimizing disruptions to district and charter programs. What this means is that the district balances program considerations when making co-location offers. Next, the district fairly balances the needs of district and charter students. The state's intent in the Prop 39 statute was to strike a balance between favoring charter school students and favoring students in school district-operated programs. The next one is that the district does not displace district students from their school of attendance. Displacing students from their current public school in favor of other students who have made the choice to attend a different school would not strike a fair balance and would tip the balance too far in favor of the charter school. Additionally, the district allows for the annual process of evaluating space needs for district programs, which allows for contemplation of changes in program enrollment, including growth to district programs or reductions, and accounting for other factors such as facilities projects and other needs. Next, in making co-location matches, the district maximizes the use of unallocated classroom space. So unallocated classroom spaces are those that do not have a designated use and would be vacant or unassigned in a particular year, as identified in the district's annual comprehensive analysis of space on district school sites. Classrooms that provide additional programming and services are not considered unallocated and are categorized according to their specific use and designation. The next part of the policy deals with supporting the district's most fragile students and schools, key programs, and student safety. While the policy has not yet been finalized or adopted, the considerations on this slide, which you'll recognize from the resolution, have been considered and taken into account in the current cycle as staff and regions are engaged in the district's matching process. So I'm sure you'll recognize these points from the resolution. Next, we have preserving programmatic spaces essential to enriching instruction in student health and human services. Again, that was a key provision in the resolution, and the policy is intended to contemplate ways for regions to determine which programmatic spaces on a campus are essential and provide flexibility, ensuring fairness in allocations of space and considering impacts to students in a way that would not tip the balance too far in the direction of the charter school. Details are continuing to be developed, but these are the guiding principles that are helping to shape this section of the policy. A fourth section is kind of a catch-all for some additional items. A new item that we've added is training and support for region offices and impacted district principals will be expanded. That's something that we've heard feedback about, and we want to ensure that the training and support that's provided is enhanced to best make sure that our regions and our schools are fully informed about the policy and about the matching guidelines. With that, I'm going to pass it back over to my colleague, Mr. Cole Gutierrez, to talk a little bit about the website.
Thank you, Jeanette. Board members, as you may recall, as part of the resolution, the Board of Education directed the creation of a redesigned charter schools page that, in addition to its current content, will provide a clearinghouse to the public for information about charter schools, charter petitions, co-location requests and offers, and other items. Since September, Charter Schools Division staff has worked closely with staff from the Information Technology Services Division to design and develop CSD's online charter school information clearinghouse. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank our colleagues in ITS for their collaboration and support at the leadership and staff levels. The clearinghouse is being designed to provide public access to a searchable documents library within the district's e-library or a third-party platform if needed. In our assessment of this, board members, we thought it may be serviceable for individuals who are interested in locating information to be able to do basic keyword searches and then be able to find information on the clearinghouse that is posted. A quick link will be posted on the CSD's redesigned website homepage to provide direct access and instructions for searching the clearinghouse documents. This gives you a basic beta preview of the updated website design that's in progress. And just to note and underscore for everyone and the public, this is just a preview and not live on the website. But you will see there the sections in the menu, general information, authorization, accountability and oversight, Prop 39 and facilities, and a section for parents and stakeholders. And you will also see there with a highlight green arrow, the quick link to the clearinghouse that is contemplated. And in this slide, before we conclude our presentation, discusses the next steps regarding the clearinghouse. The document library is in process of being assembled and prepared for public access through the clearinghouse. Staff is preparing to conduct a test drive, if you will, of the e-library as the preferred platform for the clearinghouse. And we anticipate that the redesigned website and information clearinghouse will be made available to the public by the start of the 24-25 school year. This concludes our presentation, and we welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I will open up the table for questions. Anybody want to give it a start? Jackie or Ms. Tanya Ortiz, Franklin?
Should you want to start?
Did you want to start? Anybody can start. Go ahead, Tanya.
Yes, thank you. I imagine we'll have some ongoing dialogue over the next several minutes. I wanted to ask where we are on the timeline of the policy. Just what we saw on the slides was maybe the next CAL, the next board meeting. Do we have dates for any of those or not yet?
Thank you for that question. Some of that is being worked through in terms of the logistics and the timing. As soon as those are available, those would be provided, but as soon as possible.
You want to add, Ms. Hennigan?
No, so we're working with staff to try to put a date on the calendar.
Do we anticipate it'll be this January such that it would impact schools for the 24-25 school year? Do we at least have confidence that direction or not yet?
As soon as we're able to solidify the date, so if we're able to get in the January date, then we'll be ready to present.
But at this point, we're not sure if it will impact offers for the 24-25 school year?
I think it was recognized previously. The current process is currently taking place. Staff has captured the spirit of the resolution, as Ms. Borden noted, in this process. So that will continue. And then hopefully very soon in the new year or soon thereafter will be presented and the board would adopt at a regular board meeting and then would be fully in place for the next cycle.
However, you've made a commitment publicly to do as much of it as you can right now because you've got most of the items already worked out.
That's what we've said. Is that
Right.
the spirit
So
of the
it's
resolution?
sort of a halfway. They're going to do what they can this year. They will implement it entirely next year.
Got it. Okay. So I guess my big question, based on the matching guidelines and the resolution requirements, are how do we approach if and when there's a conflict? And I know we often answer as a case-by-case basis, but if I was just thinking out loud, one of the matching guidelines is to minimize the number of sites. And one of the resolution requirements is to avoid, particular schools, BSAP, priority community schools. If those two are in conflict, how does staff approach the complexities of it?
Great question, and the word complexities is apropos. So first, it requires that case-by-case analysis and dialogue with the key stakeholders, right? Staff from our department, facilities bring data. Regions have a lot of the on-the-ground information as to what's happening. And so if there's a potential challenge as to not being able to accommodate a charter school on a site, given a variety of factors, then we will necessarily have to look at the multi-site findings. In doing so, the district will then need to present for the Board of Education's consideration the adoption of those findings. And if those findings in the board's eyes pass muster, if you will. When the resolution was discussed, part of the operational impacts that staff noted were potentiality for more co-locations due to potential more multi-sites. Still, we're trying to limit that where appropriate. But it's really through that case-by-case analysis, obtaining the information with the regions who really know what is happening, what is planned to happen at those sites, and bearing in mind our overall legal obligation.
Okay, great. And then just thinking, we'll get to see the real time for this. It's at a mid-December. Is it next week or the week after? I think I did see a calendar invite come through for the preliminary offerings for next year for feedback from board offices, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Okay. So
We
we'll
are
get to see
working
this.
through some updates to those invites, but that is still planned for next week based on, as you've said.
So next week, we'll get to see this.
Get an invitation.
Correct. We're just organizing it by region, and so those will be updated ASAP.
There, thanks.
Would you like to go
Sure,
next? Go ahead.
sure. On the policy development and design and also, well, first on the website. The idea for the website, from me, as far as I was concerned, was from Oakland. And I don't know if you've seen their charter website, but for me, that's what we're hoping for, kind of, because in one place you can find out how scores are doing, how often teachers are moving, what they're, you get a lot of information. Because one of the things I found out from parents that have kids in charter schools is they really didn't know what they were getting into. And I'm not saying that once they got there they didn't like it, maybe they did, but they really found out that it was much different than what they thought because there wasn't this information. So I'm just saying, I hope that website gets done. I know it takes time, believe me, I know it takes time. But I hope that we at least look at the kinds of things that are in Oakland's, because that's where at least I got the idea to include it as far as the resolution. You looked into current space utilization and allocation practices, I was told. Are there things that you learned that have led to improvements in space utilization and allocation practices?
Let me address first the prior point. I'll come back to that. So first, thank you for additional context. I can share with you that I myself have reviewed the Oakland Unified website, and I know my colleagues in Oakland well, and we've had some discussions in general on Prop 39, et cetera. So we will certainly bear that in mind, and it may not be exact replica.
I'm not
but
asking for a replica. I'm just saying it was part of my personal motivation, because I thought, wow, that's a lot of information you can get there.
Certainly, and thank you for that. Can you turn again to the slide you were referencing for a second question, please?
Actually, in the slide that starts with update on co-location policy development, I guess. The question really comes from a prior meeting. In the prior meeting, when we were first talking about this and we were discussing the motion itself, we were told that you had, as an office, been looking at current space utilization and allocation practices. So I'm wondering, having done that, are there things that you are changing, whether or not it has anything to do with the resolution?
Well, oh, yes, I recall that context from before, and we discussed some of those prior year. Every year, we go through a cycle of continuous improvement.
Okay.
Now, having done the resolution, we've taken that feedback as well as public comment.
Well, that's what I'm asking, is you've got a
To
lot of...
inform.
Okay. And so have there been actual improvements to the practices as far as you're concerned, as a result of this analysis?
We would hope yes. We don't want to get too far ahead since we're still drafting and finalizing the language.
Okay.
But we believe that there will be some. Certainly, there are complexities and challenges, and we're trying to work through those.
On one of the slides, you talked about supporting region offices and principals, and I'm wondering if you could give me a little bit more specific about what that training might include.
Certainly. First, to give you some real examples from this past cycle, when we've had new leadership in regions, whether at the operations level, our team has set up trainings and met with those colleagues to run through the program, how we operationalize it, et cetera. So that is one way. What we want to do more to expand on that is ongoing trainings for regions related to, for example, shared use discussions with the principals as needed.
Yes,
right?
really.
And knowing what's on their plate, but really supporting our colleagues in the field. I do want to acknowledge our operations coordinators that work in the field. They already provide a lot of this on-the-ground support, but we're seeing a need for additional levels, and we want to be responsive to what the field needs and then address those on an ongoing basis. But those are a few examples.
And at the regional level, what kinds of things are included in the training for the folks that are making major recommendations in this process?
Right. Let me invite Ms. Borden to address that since she's involved in those directly.
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry for that. The trainings that we do with the regions, will walk them through the law, the statute, the regulations, what those principles are that must be considered. Now, in the context of a policy, we're talking about what's contemplated in the policy and certainly in the resolution, so that those things can be considered as we review the space utilization data, because this is not simply just a quantitative exercise of looking at space utilization and spaces that are available as numbers. It's about looking at the actual impacts at sites, and they are the experts in what's happening at each of the sites. So we help to guide them on how they can balance looking at all of that information together in making recommendations.
So can a regional operations person look at a school that may be closer to what they requested in a different region, the region right next door, or they must rely only on schools in their own region?
We start, the basis for starting the conversation is the region where the charter school has requested to locate, but we're one district, and so it's considered
Well,
wherever.
right on the edges, all of those schools. Some of
Absolutely.
the schools actually feed into each other's middle schools and so forth.
May I add, I've been I've sat in several of the conversations with the charter school division staff, as well as different district offices and the region. There's an extensive conversation, or exactly what you're talking about, is they go school by school by school, space by space, and there is, our region staff is very knowledgeable about what's happening at their schools. So decisions that are being made, I think in one region, I think it was a 2-hour meeting, and we hadn't even finished finalizing it because it's an extensive conversation.
But can they look at nearby adjacent schools?
Yes, they
Okay,
do.
I have had that question asked of me before, and I didn't know the answer.
And I can say, because I witnessed it, so.
Okay, well, let's go to the section on school set-asides, if I can find the page here. In the matching guidelines, I guess, okay. You say that regulations, case law, and district policy, I guess you would call it, are what deal with the matching guidelines. And then you talk about having maximize the use of unallocated classroom space. So I'm wondering how we're going to deal with the fact that in a small, limited number of places, school enrollment has increased at district level, maybe even the charter level also, or we have class size reduction in the contract, or we have, what else did I write down here? In other words, there are things that may cause change. And so how are you going to evaluate what are set-asides? Is that different in a growing, you know what I'm saying? Do we maybe say you can't have as many set-asides because you're all growing and we don't want to, you know what I'm trying to say? How do you go back and forth between what's better or worse, a second site or a loss of some, you know what I mean?
Let me start, and Ms. Borden may add to it. First, and you mentioned a very important data point. For example, class size reduction year to year. Our colleagues in facilities, and from whom you heard last time, put that into the ECAR.
Right.
That's considered. So that has to be factored in. Those obligations need to be factored in.
Right.
And then, based on what remains at a school site, not only the numbers, but the qualitative information, right? Also, the charter schools facilities request, looking at all those factors. Okay, can it work here without hurting either program? And if it cannot, then we have to go to the other matching guidelines. Try to create that balance, and it might be a multi-site.
How many schools do we think the enrollment change and class size reduction may cause some new look? Is it a small number or is it a big number?
That's probably more of a facilities question. I don't know that it's
Okay.
the vast majority,
Okay.
but for more precision on that, we'd have to defer to our
Okay,
colleagues.
I think that's important, because if it's a few, I think it's a lot easier. If it's a great many, now we're really looking at, oh my goodness, now what happens? Okay. Are there any set-asides that we think it would be too disruptive to remove? For example, I'm thinking of Beyond the Bell rooms.
That would be a district set-aside, and those usually are not moved.
Okay.
Parent centers. And then there's the discussion with the regions as to other critical set-asides.
Yeah.
And then we assess
So that would be considered a district set-aside. That's
what,
different.
beyond the
Okay.
Bell school, other district-wide initiatives.
Some schools, not many, a few, have asked me, as you do this, and they're co-located, and they lost back in 2019 and 2020 some rooms that they were using, is there now, if the enrollment has declined in the schools, an opportunity to get those rooms back?
The short answer is yes. There is a process.
They apply, or how do they say, we've lost enrollment, they've lost enrollment, we lost our, this room or that room, can we get it back? How do they do that?
Usually they'll connect with our operations coordinators or through the region, and then we'll walk them through the process.
All right, it's only a handful, but we'll tell them how to do it then.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You want to add to that?
Yeah. And just to add, that's part of why this is an annual process, so that we have that opportunity to calibrate each year. So if a charter school's enrollment goes down, they may not be entitled to the same amount of space year over year. And so we would see that happen as part of this process we're undergoing right now.
And also, Board President, without getting too much into the details, but I think it's important for the field, is then there's the assessment of the resources used to reverse those rooms, and that's part of the process that we'll explain to them.
Okay, I'm getting near the end here. On 3, preserving programmatic spaces, I know you included intervention for struggling students, but I would also ask you to include timeout rooms. They are becoming more popular with SEL issues, and they have been very effective in helping kids just get out of the situation that's getting them all agitated. So I would ask you to add that.
Thank you for that note.
The test drive,
Yes.
could you include board members in seeing the test drive?
Happy to do so at that appropriate time.
That would be good, that would be good, I'd like to see it. All right, let me quick change, I think I'm done. I think I'm done, thank you.
Okay, thank you for those questions, and thank you for the answers. I have a few questions. I want to start with the website, the Clear and Design. So have you decided if it'll be the district's e-library or a third-party platform? What are the things that you elements or aspects you're considering?
Great question. In short, our priority is the e-library. The only reason for noting the other platform is making sure that we can go, if in case there are any challenges. For example, want to make sure that that has a searchable function and the interface activities. So part of it is just going through the process and learning with our ITS colleagues, but that is our preferred platform to make it work with multiple documents and a searchable function, which we think it can, but we just wanted to provide some flexibility in case we need to explore other options. But e-library is our priority method.
Could you have additional links to others or other sort of search engines or websites besides e-library, right? In case, for instance, a parent who wants to know if their school is authorized by us or state or LACO, where do they, if they want to file a complaint or if they want to follow up, who do they connect with? I think that would be, one way of connecting to besides the e-library. I think the e-library would be limited on certain searchable sort of topics or areas of interest, not only for parents of the district, but also parents that attend charter schools.
Great point, and thank you for further elaborating. The clearinghouse is essentially intended as that document library for, say, petitions, other information that's in the resolution. Then we have the other navigation bars, one for parents and stakeholders. So in that, we would see information related to our charter schools directory. Who do they contact for certain issues, right? If a school is authorized by, let's say, the county, we can provide that information. So the rest of the website is still intended to be accessible for additional information beyond the document clearinghouse.
So are you, your staff and whoever, brainstorming the different scenarios or different questions that parents may have, maybe some FAQs, right? In case you're searching for this, go here. Because I can imagine that you go to a link that leads you to another link, to another link. I want us to have connections that lead us directly to that information and not to another website where you have to look for another link, because otherwise, you get lost and you end up searching for something you're not even looking for. So we want to make sure we're leading them to direct information and not to another website. My other comment with e-library is, I know right now I've tried to use it and it doesn't take me anywhere, so I'm wondering if we're working on that, because I think if you're going to be using e-library, you need to make sure that it's working at top capacity, that we have accessible to anything, right? If they want to be community schools or even charter schools, because as it is right now, it just leads you nowhere. So that's my concern with using e-library, that if it's not functioning now, how is it going to be functioning for charter school related questions and information?
Thank you for that. We'll have to take that back with our ITS colleagues who are the experts on the technology, but noted your concerns. On the prior point, one of our guiding principles is accessibility and helping especially stakeholders get the information they need. Certainly also, we need to be mindful of language. And so those are all processes in terms of the time and effort. But appreciate the feedback on the e-library, and we'll have to explore that further.
Wonderful. And we would like to also be included in this, the test drive. Yeah, all of us. So we can provide further feedback on that. Okay, wonderful. Let's see, my other questions have to, go ahead.
Just to add on the e-library, sometimes you have to log in, so I'm assuming this will be accessible publicly. You won't have to log in, but just to make that very clear that this is publicly available. Yeah, oftentimes you think you're clicking on something that's accessible and then it asks you for your single sign-on, so we want to make sure these don't require that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that good point. Let's see. My other question had to do in the policy if you're delineating how the community can, once they find out, right, that their charter school, that their school will be co-located, what are the steps that the community can provide feedback, can be part of the discussion? Because I know as there is a preliminary announcement of all the co-locations, right? But when it becomes actual when it's finalized, the community is usually the last to know. So what steps are we taking to really inform all stakeholders, right? The community, and have a process or a space where they can provide feedback and that can be considered. Because a lot of the schools feel that they have no voice, that this is sort of the decision that was made. Yes, I know board members are notified, but even sometimes we even feel, that this is a decision, and, we want to be able to have a little bit more say or feedback in terms of when it's finalized. Where can we find a voice for the community who wants to, provide some input or constructive criticism or feedback or whatever it may be?
I understand that point, Dr. Rivas. May we take that back, and I think we need to discuss that further. Certainly there are certain processes now in place, and I hear your feedback of maybe some additional, but we need to take that back to further assess it and give our best thinking to it.
Because I feel a lot of the times this is really where, the community will come and, or at least will demonstrate in front of their school, will start sending us letters and petitions. So before, we get there, we want to make sure that we're providing all the information and feedback, and that it's actually a conversation that's going from both sides and not just from one side. Because, it does feel sometimes for a lot of our schools that, they feel like their voice wasn't considered. And so I just want to make sure we have allow space for that. Let's see, are the other questions? I think a lot of the questions were actually asked by my board members. The daylight, the matching guidelines, you mentioned that it was by case law and experiences. Let's see. I did appreciate the question in terms of what are sort of if there were any enlightening or any elucidations or improvements, like, actually we could do something better here. So I hope that in formulation of this policy, we're looking at, actually, I think this is we can probably do something to rectify sort of the areas that, are very challenging. So I know in formulating this policy, you found a lot of challenges in terms of different regions doing different things, or decision-making processes that were really case-based scenario. So looking at how can we sort of limit those processes, or there's ways that we can streamline a little bit better so that we don't have to always go to, this is a case by case, this is special. I mean, all of the cases are special, right? But I think there's an overarching thread or commonality that we can find a solution to it, so it limits sort of that subjectivity, and that we're really making something that's very objective, very transparent on both sides, the charter sort of community as well, and also our district community. Does that make any sense?
It does,
Yeah.
and thank you for that. So we'll take that back, both your and the board president's comments. And as the policy language in certain areas is finalized, try to highlight where that's the case. There are tensions in some areas. However, we're trying to find solutions as best we can.
And just on your last slide, if you can, I don't know if I missed on additional items on site visits. What did you mean that by site visits? Site visits from your office, or site visits from ECAR, or site visits what do you mean by that? Or ongoing site visits during the co-location process?
The resolution language called for site visits prior to any school being matched, if you will, or at some point in the process. Prior to the resolution, that did happen on a case-by-case basis based on the needs. They may need to have a fresh look at the site, et cetera. Maybe things have changed. Now that section will assess every single potential match, and so part of it is operationalizing that. So that's what that's intended
You've
to.
expanded sort of
Yes.
what that means instead of just going one time. So it's
Right.
more the continuity, ongoing thing.
The regions already have been doing so. At times, we've already seen it. Our colleagues in the ECAR, the Master Plan and Demographics, have gone to sites already. And certainly, as needed, our operations coordinators would join them for those sites visits.
And has anything changed in terms of the last bullet on monitoring, enforcement, and reporting charter school payment over allocation? Anything that sort of changed in that policy, or that remains? Or is that something that will be enforced stronger?
Based on the prior work and the last update Ms. Araguin shared, we have, that process is now fairly systematized. We have revisited to assess where it can be strengthened, including we have regular meetings internally as to the updates of collections, monies being received to the school sites as the board directed, et cetera. So I would say on the whole, it's been systematized, and we're meeting ongoing to assess how it's working. So you'll see that pretty much consistent.
Oh, wonderful. And then for the alternate agreements, although those are alternative agreements only for the Prop 39, or also does that also include all agreements for the over-allocation agreements that take place?
That is primarily the
That's two
Proposition 39.
Right.
And assessing that, operationalizing that process. Alternative over-allocation, that's a rare occasion, I would say. So it's primarily for the general Proposition 39 matches and offers, et cetera.
Wonderful. I think those are all of my questions. Go ahead, Board Member Goldberg.
I have two quick things. One is, I have always dreamed of having all of the students have an LAUSD ID number, charter and non-charter, because I have noticed, particularly in my southeast area, kids go back and forth, back and forth. Sometime they're in a charter school, and then the next year they decide, no, they're going to be in a middle school that's a district school, but they'll go to a charter high school. I think it would resolve quickly a lot of the movement that happens so often between one and the other, and sometimes it's between charter and charter, if we had a common student ID for all the students that live within our district, whether they're charter students or not. Is that possible?
That's a big topic, Board President. We'll have to take that back and discuss.
Okay.
Just, I know there's a state ID, and then you have the district. There is a lot.
Okay,
So
just seems to me, because at first I thought you go to a charter school in elementary and you stay all the way through, and that turns out to be true for some kids, but not for a lot of them. And the reverse is also true. They may go to us at elementary, but not in middle, and come back, you know what I'm saying? And I hear from principals all the time, well, we didn't get any information and we don't know anything. Well, if they had an LAUSD student ID number, they could get everything immediately. Anyway, I'd just like to hear more about that, because I really think it's an enabling thing that helps us with the fact that our families sometimes go back and forth.
Absolutely.
And also between
That's a
two
bigger,
charter schools.
so we'll confer with other colleagues on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. The other one that I'm interested in is that we've been talking amongst ourselves, and not you, just the two of us, because we're the makers of the motions, but I want to say it publicly, about a different approach to alt agreement decisions. And that instead of having, as the resolution says, for all of them to have a board vote, I would like you to explore the possibility of the board member in whose district it is gets a view and thumbs up or thumbs down, and if they thumbs down, then and only then it goes to the whole board. Because I think that'll save a lot of time and energy, and it'll give you an immediate feedback from the board member in whose district this is. And if they say no, if I say no, I'm not the last word, shouldn't be, one person. I would then, as board president, reschedule within 24 hours a vote on that. I would like you to look at that and see if that makes more sense than what we originally said, which was all of them would have to come to the board, which I'm not sure is desirable, as you said. So we thought about it further, and I hope you'll look at some alternatives as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Oh, go ahead. One more.
I just wanted to ask if you could share a little bit from your perspective how it's looking this year, and maybe we'll have to wait until next week, but are we getting more requests for locations? Are we looking at more multi-sites? Are we getting less requests, less multi-sites? Do you have any sort of like general comments on how it's going so far this year?
Yes, as we are still in the process, at our last meeting, we did share that overall the number of charter requests was down again this year, which is down very significantly over the last decade, almost decade. And so overall, fewer requests. I'm not sure where we'll end up yet, whether it will overall be a decrease in the number of co-locations when we factor in multi-site. So as we make our way through the process, we'll keep the board updated.
Great, that's a very good question. Well, thank you. The whole purpose, and I hope that, I know you're working very hard, but the purpose of the resolution is really to make it more transparent, clear, and fair. Fair for both sides. Because the way it was taking place was not, there was a lot of tension, a lot of toxicity. We really want to eliminate that. And I know you've mentioned the spirit, right? But there's more than the spirit. We were sending a directive. We were sending a message that was the voice of a lot of our constituents, a lot of our teachers and principals, parents and students. So it's more than just a spirit. It's actual reality. And we really love for you to really keep that in mind. So thank you very much. I appreciate you for presenting today. And as a board member and as a parent, I believe in the basic principle of educational interests of charter school students and also the educational interests of also our district students. Because students are students, children are children. But sometimes the actions of adults and political interests and so many other things get into place in a barrier and create challenges that really should not be there. And this is really just to address all of that. And we're hoping that this would take us into a clear path to, you know, more working together, more collaboration, more transparency, and just really honest conversations, particularly when both sides are facing under enrollment. We have charter schools that are closing. We have so many other things that are taking place that are impacting both sides. So that's all really what the intention is. So thank you for that. So now we will go to public comment.
Here we go. Public comment starts now. Remember, it's 2 minutes per comment. We have mostly in-person folks, so as is our practice, we'll call on the in-person folks first so that they can return to whatever they were doing before. So the first person is Keith Delaquila. Come on up. You'll have 2 minutes to speak once you begin. Keith D.
Good afternoon, board members. I appreciate the opportunity to talk, appreciate the conversation today. There are a few concerns I do want to raise. You talked a lot about transparency and fairness and an open process that works better for all. That's, I think, what every stakeholder wants. I'm not seeing it happen yet. You're having an imbalanced conversation, and I think you're losing the forest for the trees because you're focusing on one group of students, one group of constituents, one group of stakeholders, and charter families, charter operators, charter teachers are on the other side of that, continuing to be left in the dark. Great example of that is next week, you all will see preliminary offers. Your regional offices will see preliminary offers. Your labor partners will see preliminary offers, and it will be 6 to 8 weeks before charter schools have any idea what those offers might look like. So if you're looking for a space to lower the anxieties, to lower the threshold, I'd ask you to make that same information available to all stakeholders, especially the ones who are most directly impacted, which are charter school families and students who don't know if they're going to be moved down the road, don't know if they're going to be moved, across into a different district, across the street or into a different community. We talk about this work in a lot of abstractions. I appreciate that we're getting to a level of concrete detail and transparency here. But I do want to remind you there are 118,000 charter school students in LA Unified. 100,000 of them are students of color. 90,000 of them are low-income students. 25,000 of them are English learners. 17,000 are students with disabilities. Half of the identified indigenous students in LA County attend a charter school. And we're talking about abstractions, and what's being left out of this conversation are the people whose educational experiences are most directly impacted by this work. So I'd ask you to take a look at that level of transparency when you're making these preliminary offers. It is dismaying to hear that a resolution that is only a resolution and not yet a policy is already being implemented, whether that's a spirit, whether it's a directive. It's not a policy that this board has approved. And so in a process that is meant to be more transparent, you're making it more opaque. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Carmen, are you here? Carmen, come on up. You'll have 2 minutes to speak once you begin.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Carmen Loera, and I'm with the California Charter School Association. I'm also here representing the 118,000 students that currently attend public charter schools in Los Angeles. I'm a public charter school alumni, an English language learner, a DACA recipient, an immigrant. My mother made the decision to leave her home country in search of better education opportunities for her kids. I was 10 years old at the time, and not understanding a word of English definitely made this a very foreign world to me. I started my public school journey in America being told to sit in the back, handed a book in English, and told to read and take notes while the rest of the class moved on with the lesson. I moved through middle school carrying an old dictionary with me as my translator and working extra hours every day on my own, trying to figure out my assignments to catch up to my peers and join the lessons. It was my experience later joining a public charter school that changed the course of my educational career and the reason I am passionate about the work that I do in the charter movement. The support I received from each and every one of my teachers, all the way up to the founders of my public charter school, made me realize that I didn't have to do this alone. The one-on-one support, the mentorship, the additional opportunities they provided me helped me grow as a much stronger and confident student with goals that I knew were possible for me. Throughout my work, I've met countless of immigrant families who left their countries looking for a better future for their kids and felt blessed to have high-quality public school options like public charter schools in their own communities. My story is the story of many English language learners and immigrant students who found their way and support through a public charter school. In 2022-23, about 25,000 English learners attended independent public charter schools in LAUSD, which represents 21% of total charter enrollment. Many public charter school students have become, many public charter schools have become leaders in innovative approaches, closing the opportunity gap and providing targeted support, specifically for English language learner and immigrant students. It is imperative that we work together as you create policies and make decisions that will impact the educational experience of thousands of public charter school students and families seeking a chance for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Luz Maria Rivas, are you here? David Tokovsky, are you here? I do not see you in the audience, Mr. Tokovsky, and you are not online. Elizabeth Hernandez, are you here? Elizabeth Hernandez? Are you, and you're Elizabeth? All right, come on up. You'll have 2 minutes total to speak when you start. And if you could give me your name before you start, and we won't count that towards your 2 minutes, just so I can have a record.
My name is Joey Mendez, and I am here to express my disappointment in how little progress was reported during the Charter Committee last month on the collocation policy. There was a 45-day timeline to create a policy, and here we are, 45 days later, without a final policy. We also got no updates last month on the definition of an empty or unlocated classroom space and what schools legally have to give away under Prop 39 and have gotten no clarity on the issues that came to light during the September board meeting. It was outrageous to learn that things we were told were state law were actually just LAUSD policy, and even more outrageous than that was no immediate follow-up. The information presented today should have been immediately given out so that everyone understood these policies going into ECAR process and the new set of facilities requested. We urgently need a co-location policy that is fair and protects our community schools and BSAP schools, that we need accountability from the district's charter school division. This is why we have been demanding an audit of all agreements made under the current definition of empty classrooms, accountability from those in the charter division, and meeting with Carvalho We have not heard from anyone any of these demands. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Eloisa Galindo, are you here? Eloisa Galindo, there you are. Ms. Galindo is going to speak in Spanish. If you'd like to hear what she's saying in English as she's speaking it, please put your hand up and you'll receive a headset so that you can experience simultaneous translation. We're just going to pass those out and start in a few moments.
Buenas tardes, miembros del board.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I am Eloisa Galindo, and today I'm here to let you know that that's a very slow progress. And within this co-location, and what is Proposition 39 is saying, there's a very low progress. I am here reclaiming our schools, but I'm especially coming from East LA, from Boyle Heights, where we won't put a blind eye and say, well, how is it that we are attacking each other as parents? This is all politics, and this is power, and we are not going to stop naming Monica Garcia, Brendes, Antonio Villaraigosa. They gave all their political power to do a lot for East LA and Boyle Heights. I believe it's time to stop this. You have the power to change so that we can have equality, so there can be justice and democracy within our classrooms in our community. A manifestation is taking place in Montebello as of now, and parents are saying, why are they closing my schools? This is the reason why, because the executives of the charter schools, the executives, Mirna Estrejo, she is the executive of charter schools, Rojas, and all these people are not being accountable. They should be accountable. They need to see that. They need to see this publicly, how this is being handled. This is what's happening. The children are the ones that are suffering. The families that come from great parents, that we go to church together. I've never fought with any other parent because I know and I'm conscious that the real people in charge are the executive and those three politics, especially the ones that I named, that what they did to East LA and Boyle Heights. It's about time they are accountable. It is time that justice is done and for there to be democracy. We are here, we've been here several times with signatures, with protests, with press conference. It is time for you to listen to the community and bring down the executives that are becoming richer with the public money because of our children.
Anna Martinez, are you here? Anna Martinez, come on up and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once you begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I'm nervous. My name is Ana Martinez, and I work at Vaughn Next Entry Learning Center. Vaughn is a grade span school where we teach grades pre-K through 12. We have 5 different sites, 3 elementary and 2 secondary sites. I have been at Vaughn for 18 years. I started as a kindergarten teacher where I taught for 8 years. I then transitioned to be the curriculum coordinator at a primary site. After 5 years, I transitioned to be the school-wide English learner coordinator. I grew up as an English learner. Therefore, I felt very passionate about supporting our English learners and taking on this new role to ensure our students receive the support they need to be successful. At Vaughn, about 25% of our student population are English learners. Last year, we reclassified 14% of our English learners, and we have created a model in which students can receive as much support as possible. Each of our sites have an ELD paraprofessional that supports students in the classroom and in small groups out of the classroom. In grades 4 through 12, we have ELD teachers that support students during their designated ELD time. Academic language is continuously developed and explicitly taught in the classrooms as well. We have partnered with an organization, Ensemble Learning, that has been providing support all around. They are providing the classroom observations, professional development, and one-on-one teacher support, and leadership coaching support. Our goal with the organization is to provide support to teachers to help them increase the use of structured student talk routines in the classroom. In addition, we ensure our parents play an important role in supporting our students. We have monthly meetings with parents where we inform them of English learner services and programs provided at VON. We hold informational meetings to inform parents of how they can be involved in the education of their children and be active participants in assisting their children, not only to attain English proficiency, but also to achieve at high levels in core academic subjects. When I work with our parents, I try to empower families so they also feel that they can be partners in their child's education, regardless of language barriers. My
Thank you very
experiences.
much for your time. We appreciate
Thank you for your time.
Eric White, come on up. You have 2 minutes to speak once you begin. Eric White.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric White. I'm here before you as a parent first. I'm a parent in the South Region in LAUSD, and also I'm organizer with Reclaim Our Schools LA, and a member of the Police Free Schools Coalition. And I'm here before you today because parents' voices have been ignored for a long time, and there's been a lot of lack of trust. So with this whole charter school process, there should be, I'm recommending that we try to regain the public's trust around a lot of this, this right here. There was clear, very lack of progress in the last month meeting for the charter schools with the co-location policy. So we are here expressing the frustration with that, you know, because as board members, when the resolution is passed, it's like a directive, right, for it to be honored and taken with urgency by the superintendent. And, you know, this lack of progress that's been making is very, you know, it's like dismissive at this point. So also I wanted to raise that there was no clear definition, and it should be in writing, of what an empty classroom is, and also what an unallocated room is. And we want to make sure that we put protections around BSAP schools and community schools. We want to make sure that we protect those schools because those are some of our most vulnerable schools. And we have been demanding an audit. So I don't know where we are with that, but we would like to hear more information about the audit on what needs to be done on the agreements that were made during that time, and to find out that it was an internal policy by LAUSD to offer up those classrooms in some of those spaces is actually, you know, it's very disappointing and it's ridiculous. You know, we thought that that was state law. So we need to be made clear, and we need a clear understanding on what's the difference between what the state law requires and what the actual district policy requires. That's my time. Okay.
Thank you for your time. Angelina Jimenez. Angelina Jimenez. Disculpe, señor Jiménez, ¿vas a hablar en español? ¿Sí? Okay. Okay. Ms. Jimenez is going to speak in Spanish. If you want to hear what she's saying in English in the moment that she's saying it, please put on the headphones and or request one. Everyone all set? Okay. Por favor, pase.
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning to everyone. My apologies that we are making you work, because who are we to tell you what you need to do and what you know that you need to do? But I understand that you have a lot of work, and I believe that it's time to remind you all. And my apologies, I did not present myself. I'm Angelina Jimenez. I'm a member of Access. I'm a grandmother of 3 granddaughters. One of them is at a charter school. That's why I know about the issues. I don't like her being there, but I can't tell the parents what to do. I am here so that the audit is done based on all the charter schools. I am also here. One moment. I'm also here because we want a meeting with the superintendent. We've been waiting for this meeting for a while so that we can find solutions to these issues. The superintendent said that within 45 days we would have a meeting, but I don't think they know how to count because 45 days are due and we haven't had the meeting. It makes me really sad, and this is extra. This comes from me, directly from me. My granddaughter is at a high school. She's in the 10th grade, and she says, "Grandma, we don't have any place to do sports. We only have an auditorium because the charter school, they have a church, and there's only an auditorium. They have no space for sports. I need to take my granddaughter every day to the park so she can at least walk. She enjoys sports. She enjoys walking. I would love for you to make more of an effort so that when the permission to open a school comes upon, you can focus on that. We should have sports for all children because they need it." Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I see Mr. Tokovsky has just come into the room. Mr. Tokovsky, come on up. You will have 2 full minutes once you begin. Thank you. No.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I'm sure you had a presentation today earlier added to the statements about how the oversight of the KIPP schools failed to inform the district early enough that there was going to be 3 closures of KIPP schools, which we should have known by the enrollment numbers and the number of classrooms, and then had a team under the leadership of Veronica Arguin or Jose Col Gutierrez there to receive these kids and give them offers. It's difficult to move them from charter schools back to the district, so it takes a full-fledged team of social workers, counselors, teachers, principals to do that. Same thing happened out in the valley with North Valley Military Institute. 820 kids were in that charter school, and when it closed down, there was hope that they'd go to that middle school that they were co-located on. But in fact, if you check the CUME records, because all charters must then transfer the CUME records, most of those kids, 90% of them, have not fallen into LA Unified Schools. In fact, there's 4 times as many, according to North Valley, who haven't gone to any school. They've just dropped out. It's not our school, that one, but these 3, 2 of these 3 are ours. And so the co-location is kind of symptomatic. It should be a vehicle of advertising, of making sure people understand the value of magnet schools and district schools, and above all, the anemic relationship to affiliated charters continues to be disastrous. The ability to get some affiliated charters on the borders near Linwood and Paramount and Hawthorne and Inglewood is not happening. And now there's talk of maybe 2 continuation schools doing it. I mean, come on, a continuation school's like less than 60 kids, okay? This should be a grand effort because we're the largest CMO in the entire state, and that's the affiliated charters fundamentally in the West Valley, but like Ted Alexander, which is now being considered for some other filling up of the Miramar site, you know, we've got richness in the district. We are LA Unified. We can do much better. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And we have one last person who called in to speak remotely. It looks like Antonieta Garcia. Please press *6 to unmute yourself, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once you begin. Antonieta Garcia.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, hi. My name is Antonieta Garcia. I'm an LAUSD parent and I'm an ACE member, Reclaim Our Schools LA and Central CSO Education Chapter co-chair. And I am here to urgently we need the co-location policy to be more fair and to be more fair and to be very strong. There has been, we gave 45 days to the superintendent, and it looks like he's not really taking care of this issue of this matter, because it's not only public schools but also charter schools that we all need the help as well too. Now, the superintendent and the charter school division has not been accountable to us and has not been accountable to you, and also the elected board members. As you can see right now, it came out in in the LA Times that there were 3 charters that they're shutting down, and that's due to low enrollment, not because of the resolution. Right now in Montebello, there's a big protest of kid parents that they're actually protesting and screaming at the students and screaming to all the teachers and staff from Gascon Elementary School in Montebello. I know that that's just Montebello District and it's not LAUSD, but this is what happens when this. So we need for this resolution to be very strong. We need our demands to be met. We need an audit, just like which we have said. And as a parent, as an LAUSD parent, we do come from a co-located school, and it was not very fun. It was very, it was very toxic, just like how it was mentioned before. So I strongly, Superintendent Carvalho, you need to pay attention to this policy, and you need to be strong with this. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. That concludes our public comments.
Well, thank you, everyone who is here in person, everyone watching remotely, and thank you to our public speakers. Reminder that this committee meeting and all materials, you can find them at the lausd.org/BOE website. And with that said, I want to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, happy holidays, happy New Year, and we will be seeing you at the next meeting on January 11th at 2 p.m. Be well, everyone. Thank you.